Good afternoon, everyone. We're here with another segment with Jericho Road Inc. And we have a topic that's what we call very touchy and let's say that it touches a lot of things and aspects in our lives. It causes us to look at the way we handle situations and how our growth sometimes is stunted and things that we could look at so that we could better ourselves and bring better self-awareness so that we could have better relationships, not only with our significant others, but with people around us. Um, just to start out, we starting from a book of mothers who can't love, right? Um, within a process of there's a number of women who have been struggling and damaged, have emotional damage, right? And they've been raised up with criticism, competition, role reversal, smother and control, neglect, and abuse. These women are plagued with anxiety and depression, right? And relationship problems, lack of confidence, and difficulties with trust. They doubt their own selves, they doubt their abilities to love. All right. So this is what the mother wound causes, right? It doubts their ability to love. It makes them doubt their self-worth, right? So there are five types of things that causes mothers not to love, right? So the five is the narcissistic mother, which is what we're going to be looking into today, the competitive mother, the overly enmeshed mother. That's the other one that we're going to be looking in today. The control freak and mothers who need mothering and mothers who abuse or fail to protect daughters from abuse. Remember, this is coming from a mother and daughter perspective. Although I do have um the mother and son perspective because I feel that it's intertwined and it needs to be spoken about because there are a lot of things that affect the male in this process too of having a mother who doesn't give that kind of love. So what we did was I did a little comprehensive exploration of the matter of the complex and painful relationships that mothers and daughters have, right? We also delve into the psychological dynamics at play when mothers struggle to love their daughters, providing a deep understanding of various type of maternal neglect and abuse and unavailability that can impact a child's emotional and psychological well-being. All that saying is that there's psychological and physiological things that impairs certain mothers to actually give the kind of love that they need in the relationships, right? So there, to my understanding and to what we looked at, right, we saw that there's different types of mothers who struggles loving their daughters, who struggle loving their kids, right? And these include controlling, dismissive, narcissistic, and emotional mothers that are absent, among others. And it provides a clear framework for the different type of mothers which impact their daughters' lives. Now, I don't know if y'all ever seen this or ever experienced it, but this is a major issue now and it's coming up of mothers who are neglecting or mothers who are not expressing the type of love that their children need in order for them to be successful. Okay, now the common denominator in all of this is that unloving mothers is longing for validation. Validation is the major point of this, and I'm going to get back to this point because validation plays a major part in the unloving mother, right? And what the child is looking for is also validation. So both are looking for validation, right? So the child just wants somebody to say, yes, you went through these things did happen, and now let's go and work through it, right? They're looking for that validation. Because of many mothers' inability to be consistently loving and supporting, right? They they look and the child wonders that if they can be a great mother because of the lack of a great role model that they had. Um, is it possible that they could find a love inside of them that they never got from their own mothers? This is the questions that we're going to be looking at today. Like I said, this is a deep conversation, and we're gonna give a little levity to it. But what I want to do, now that we have some people on, is I want to show you a video of a narcissistic mother who is tending to a child. I want you to look at this, and we're gonna revisit this video because this video explains a lot of what we're looking at right now. Hold on, let me share this video with you. This video reached, as soon as I put it on, it reached about let's say it reached about, I'm sure about 9,000 people within a day period. This is the fastest growing video I've ever had. So with that being said, I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. There we go. All right, so this is the video.
Because my kid thinks it's more important to be pretty than educated, more important to be a follow body than a leader, right? Okay. I'm not a parent who likes to use physical discipline. Come here, you're gonna learn today, girl. No physical discipline. Mom, don't mom me. No. You had your warning, you had your chance. I told you to listen. I told you stop disobeying my rules. I told you being cute ain't shit if you have no education. I told you stop disobeying me. I told you to listen and do as you're supposed to. I told you to do good in school. I told you to do your daily routine, and you yet to even do any of it. And you thought you were disobeying me today and I was not coming to cut this hair off. You're sadly mistaken because you thought being pretty was so much better than being educated or listening to your mom, right? Yes, this is what happens when you don't listen to your mom.
All right. Now, there's a lot of things about that video. That video within an hour got 9,000 reviews. If you ever go on Instagram and you look, that video got 9,000 reviews. And it's still growing today. People are still upset. The people are still outraged at what they saw. And, you know, I wanted to show you it to get some of your reactions. If you don't have a reaction at this time, does anybody have anything to say about what they saw?
Yeah, I think that's crazy. I don't think that was appropriate.
All right. Okay, why would you feel that wasn't appropriate, Shirt?
Um, I would say she could have took the had the braids taken out. You know, she didn't have to chop off all of her hair. You know what I mean?
Right. Okay.
So I was actually doing some research and I was looking at some of the statistics behind. And so one of the things that they talked about is they said, as we're talking about this topic, they said one of the things that's a myth is that we talk about mother in love, like mothers have to have this instinct in which, you know, we can debate whether or not they do have this
Yeah.
automatic love for their children. And they were talking about that's a myth because a lot of times that's not necessarily the case. And they were talking about just in the research that I was doing, they were saying that over 700,000 children are abused, and 80% of it comes from the abuse at the hands of their parents. And so one of the things that I was looking at as I was doing my research, we talked about the control, and then we talked about, I mean, it was talking about control and it was talking about self-love and it was talking about those strong measures to discipline and the impact of that discipline. And it was talking about having good intention, but the good intention not being what it needed to be. So I just wanted to share that as I was thinking about the research that I was doing.
All right. So my screen is full. Okay, come back. Okay, yeah. So here goes, right? So they have different types of unloving mothers, right? So there's mothers who can't love, and then there's mothers who won't love. So the difference is, right, it's possible for mothers to know how to love, right? Women seeking healing that well into their adulthood is seeking healing that the mother wound to give her to gain back her confidence and to reach her fuller potential as a woman and as a partner, right? So the problem is that they're missing this strong mother bond that women often struggle for a lifetime with a bewildering sense of loss and self-deprivation. Struggling with pain and repercussions, an unloving mother can be intensely lonely and isolating. People with healthy mothers have a hard time understanding this, right? So daughters with unloving mothers often say that their mother is depressed. Their mother is self-absorbed. She's crazy. She's an alcoholic. She's verbally abusive. But until they fully disconnect from the mother myth, you can't halt the emotional cycle. And whatever is happening and whatever the mother is doing, they believe is that it's their fault. The mother myth is that mothers are capable of love, protection, and kindness. Not all mothers or have this ability. Okay, let's look at the reason why they don't have this ability. Because of serious psychological and physiological impairment, right? They're willing but not able to provide the constant love that plays a large role that plays in guiding a child's emotional well-being. So they truly can't love because of their own situations that they have, right? So that's why they either fail or not capable of protecting their children. Okay.
So what I'm hearing you saying, what I'm thinking about in my research and my reading, and it's not all of the topics, but it was talking specifically about what they said was depression, which I'm talking about. I'm gonna put under the umbrella of mental illness. That was one of the issues that they talked about. And then they talked about unresolved trauma. And so one of the studies that I've been doing, or the research, or one of the trainings that I've been in, it talked about a lot of times we don't address situations from where we're at right now. A lot of times the responses is coming from somewhere that we've yet to resolve, haven't dealt with, or somewhere that's triggering a response. And so when we think about it, when we talk about this relationship and we talk about this dynamic, we want to definitely look at the component of trauma and how our childhood, right, played an impact in that, because it sounds just like a cycle, right? So we didn't have a good relationship with our family, and this is just me kind of like summing up what you just said to a degree. We didn't have a good relationship with our parent. We don't know how to have a good relationship. We've not received the fundamental resources, information, ability to kind of formulate what it takes, the formula to kind of create that. And so we continue that cycle of having this unhealthy behavior and this unhealthy relationship, just because we're kind of like on this circle, right? This on this wheel. It just keeps going and it just keeps
Cycle.
going and it just keeps going until someone realizes that, hey, you know what? This is what happened. And you know what? I see this is what happened. I don't want this for my family, my children, the next generation. And then we talk about and put some steps into place. Maybe I'm getting ahead of myself to kind of
No,
break
no,
that
no.
cycle and
It's
that
cool.
pattern. But, that's really, that's what I'm hearing. And that's what's, coming across to me as I'm listening to you.
All right. So, just to know while you was talking about that, do you know that there were some people who actually agree with what the mother did, and there was some people who said that was perfectly fine. You the only thing they had a problem with was that the the mother shouldn't have put it on social media. The humiliation made it counterproductive for the child, and because of the humiliation, the message that she was trying to send her would not be well received. So there's a point where you could beat a child into rebellion instead of
Right.
beating them into submission, right?
And that's,
So there's a thing like I mean, even between me and my mother, sometimes my mother could tell me, "Ooh, I'm looking." I say, "Yeah, I'm not doing it." Like, you know what I'm saying? Oh, I just don't, you know what I'm saying? Oh, we just don't agree. You know what I'm saying at this time. I mean, these things do happen, you know what I'm saying? But I'm just saying, my point is that you could yell at a child and beat a child so much that it has an adverse effect. And instead of me listening to you, now you become my enemy, you the op. And now at the end of the day, what happens is I do everything that you don't like. And I stand there and look, this is why kids go to school, and no matter how you beat them in the past, they just constantly fail, right?
You
A
know
lot.
what?
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking, as I was sharing earlier, one of the things that I was reading is that the well-intended action on behalf of the parent is unsuccessful. It doesn't accomplish the goal. As opposed to accomplishing the goal, it has an adverse effect and response with the child because that wasn't necessarily the move that you wanted to take, and what you thought was a good move, and you being a parent and exercising your right and your power and your control does not connect. I had started talking about the research that I was doing in the training that I did. And one of the things that they talked about is called, and I think I've shared this many times, is called Parent Leadership, Masterful Parenting. And it kind of talks about your parenting style. Why are you doing that? What you're doing, is it giving you the outcome that you want? Like, where are you getting your information to parent from? And a lot of times, I don't know about anybody else. For me, my parenting was like, okay, I saw my mother do this. I saw my mother do that. I know how to do this. I seen that. I do that. And that was, I'm talking about the productive part of that, right? So I did that. But then there was also the unproductive things that I did that I saw. And it was only until I had an exchange of information that I was able to kind of lay some of that information down, like, okay, this was good. This helped me to guide me in that way. But this is dysfunctional and this is not serving the right purpose. So I say all of that to say that sometimes we are responding like, why would she think in other words, the point I'm trying to get at is what information gave her clearance to kind of cut off the child's head as a means of discipline to kind of correct the child? Like, where was that coming? Where did she get that from? Like, what supported her in that position to say this is a successful means of disciplining your child to get the outcome you wanted? I guess that's the point I'm trying to make.
Right. And you know, the funny part about it is she's correcting the child in the way she looked, but she uses a filter in the video to make herself look good. Right. So at the time, you punishing the child, but yet you're using the filter to make your own self look good. It to me, the whole thing was counterproductive. And I'm looking at it now, me just basing it on what I saw. There doesn't look like there's a father figure in the house at all, because there wasn't a co-parenting decision on that. There was just a one-person decision, and she looked very angry. So no doubt that the relationship with the father is very bad to begin with, and her anger is displaced because I guess, you know, with the singularity of just dealing with life and dealing with expenses, plus having the burden to take everything on, plus you not listening to me. Now I'm taking the frustration out on you totally. And sometimes our hand gets heavy due to the situations that we have in life that causes us to go to extreme measures, not realizing that all the burden and all the things is not on the child. But
Right. And
because
that's
because of that frustration that's going on with inside of you, and sometimes we don't have self-control, we express all of that in one motion. Make sense?
right. It
Yes.
does. And what happens is we are now creating an opportunity or situation where now we're creating resentment. This girl is probably angry, frustrated, mad at her parent, not building the right relationship. Who's going to say that she's going to get the right information to kind of continue, or do she continue with this information? She didn't like it. I'm going to share something with you. So this is a really important topic for me for a number of reasons, just because I understand the dynamic of not having, and it talked about, so in my research, it talked about a lot of different parents, right? A lot of different reasons why mothers don't love. And we talked about the mental illness. We talked about past trauma. We talked about lack of development, lack of maturity, lack of having that support and that love and that nurture being developed. And it talked about the angry parent, right? And so when I started doing my research and I started looking at it, I was like, it started triggering me, hitting me a little bit, right? Because I could say I grew up in one of those situations where, my mother had a lot of death, right? She had her father die, then she had her stepfather die, then she had her sister brutally murdered, and then she had my uncle who was killed. We still don't know what happened to him. And so she had all these traumas, right? All of these things. Um, and then she had children, right? She had life. And so there was moments where I'm not going to say me, being the oldest child, I'm kind of like, you in this situation where you are looking to feel, wondering why, what did I do that you're angry with me? I'm just a child, right? So we don't force the positive things, we force the negative things. We force the judgment, anger, disapproval, frustration. And so you have these kind of dynamics, right? So all of this that was in her situation, in her space, that she did not deal with kind of trickled over, right? And so I'm looking like, hold on, wait a minute, what's going on here? And at one point, when we talk about validation and acceptance, I got to the point where I was like, that's not going, I don't care. And this is my mind. I'm like, I don't care what anybody thinks. I am not looking. And then you kind of get to that space where it's like, I am not looking for anybody to validate me anymore. I am going to do what I need to do. And this is how we're going to move from here on in. So I take this position. And so I honestly will tell you, had it not been for an exchange of information, letting go all that crazy dysfunctional information and getting other information, because I would have been headed down that same pathway, right? Because part of the research I was looking at, it was like some parents, they get to a place and they get to a space, right? And so where they are triggered or where they found this situation of abuse or neglect or the trauma, when their children get to that space, it could be a repeat of what's happening. So you taking out either judging, punishing, retaliating, all kind of things that could happen in that space. And I really had to kind of look at my own situation and be like, you know what? I didn't like how this happened over here. I don't want this to play out over here the same way. And I really had to kind of let go of some things, let go of some information, and be willing to see some and receive some different information to make some different choices to have a different outcome. And I have to be honest with you, had it not been for the information, I probably would have been down that same pattern, because I could see that cycle, that unless you have somebody or some information different than what you had, it's really difficult. You think that this is no big deal. I told you guys, my mother and my stepfather used to fight. They used to pull a table out and start fighting. So I didn't think that it was a problem to fight, right? Because we think that this is acceptable. These are the people that are showing us what is acceptable. So if they're saying to us this is acceptable, then I'm like, why we can't do this? What's the problem? Like, that's the problem, is not me. This is okay. This is what. But I'm not laughing. I'm just making light of it. I'm just saying that I literally had to change some information because I could see myself headed down that same way, heading down that same path. And to be honest with you, I've seen people, and it's not a mother to mother, it's a father to father. It passed down from a father. The father is not there, didn't want to do the right thing. And now it passed down to the father, and he doesn't want to do the right thing, but he thinks he's doing a great job, a stand-up job. And so I just wanted to share that.
No, 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 definitely that leads into my next statement. My next statement is a question is like, the mothers ask, how can I hurt my daughter today? And it's not about them hurting their daughter. Their behaviors are driven by outside forces, right? Conscious and unconscious, and awareness of their emotions. And they are afraid of confronting a criminal sense of insecurity and an unshakable feeling of deprivation and disappointment in their own lives, right? So these things are contributing to them being what they're that they can't love, and the unlovingness that they have inside of us is not because they don't want to. It's because of their own situations that are driving them, these forces that are driving them. They're unresolved issues, just like you were saying to me, that the unresolved issues, the unresolved trauma. They look for relief from their own fears and sadness. They use their daughters to show up their feelings of power and agency and control, right? The hallmark of all mothers is lack of empathy, and the intense self-centeredness blinds them from the suffering they're creating. They rarely step out of themselves to see things from your point of view. All they know is that they want what they want, they need what they need. They find it difficult and not impossible to make connections between their demons and hurtful actions that come to define their relationships with you. All right. So unravel it. So what they're saying is basically is that, hey, they're creating all this suffering, but it's unbeknown to them, and really they not worried about that. They need what they need and they want what they want, and at the end of the day, they're living their life vicariously through you. All right. So this is the makings of what we call insecure attachments. So when you know you have a narcissistic parent, you know you have to have a codependent parent. So usually we call the codependent parent is the mother, right? So the mother is seeking validation, and she's seeking the consent of validation from others. So as a codependent parent who is raising a child, she looks for that sense of self, and that 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 validation from her child, right? So she doesn't encourage that separation. She encouraged that controlling behavior so she can seek her own self-approval, her own validation, right? She gives compliments now and then, the push and pull, right? Because in the push and pull relationships, the less validation you give to someone is the more they seek it. And because you're a person that they approve, you're a person that they look to, right? They will always be seeking your approval, which is what we call conditional love, right? So that validation is so important in a person, child, and to their success. And when that's threatened, it threatens who they are and what they do as a person and the potentials that they have inside of them. Many adults struggle to make decisions, and sometimes they seek the confirming decisions from other sources and other people. And because they're looking to seek this validation, and they're looking to seek um persons who can help them with their decisions when their mother is not around, a lot of times they end up in unhealthy relationships, and they end up with people who don't have their best interests at hand, and the guidance that they're seeking is taking them further down the rabbit hole. You got something to say to me?
I was just, as I was listening to you, I was just thinking about the developmental process, right? And we're talking about a lack of security, a lack of trust, a lack of um, foundation. And I'm talking about the parent, right? And so we have these kind of breakdowns in this person. And then the person is now, they have this child and they put all these expectations on the child. Like what I didn't get when I was growing up, I'm expecting this now from this child. This child is going to be the one. They put all of these kind of expectations on the child, on this relationship for this child, not allowing that this child has nothing to do with your past trauma, and that's the connection. This child is not a part of the past trauma. This child, hopefully you were supposed to conceive and love with an intent, with a healthy foundation to love them, to be able to be there for them, not for them to fulfill what did not happen in your childhood that now you are tying them to. And then it becomes one of these situations where you're trying to control the dynamics. They can't do anything unless you're controlling every part of it. And then what happens is you don't allow them. And I was thinking about this to problem solve. You don't allow them to have the ability to make decisions, to make, make mistakes or to figure things out. They always look into you because you're trying to control the dynamics, as opposed to allowing them to have a natural process of development where they learn, they grow, they figure out, they fall, they get up. You stop all of that because of your own fear, your own issues, that you don't allow this child now to develop. And now they're your crutch and they're crippled because you're using them to kind of fulfill what didn't happen in your own childhood, and they don't have a chance to kind of develop, have a healthy development. That's what I was just thinking as I was listening to
All right. So with that, all right, before I get into the next part of the talking, I want to show this video. This got 14,000 reviews, right? A lot of people was upset. I had to show it. Hold on. Let me show you this and we're gonna get right back into it. This one is very sad.
You say that you don't see the man that your son is. So I'm asking you, since this is not a demonstration of a man, you need to tell me what man you're using to measure him with. Which one?
My idea.
Which is your idea. Now, is that the idea you trained him up to be?
No.
Oh, so how in the blazing bejesus are you holding him accountable to a standard that you didn't teach him, his father didn't give him, he don't even know what it is, and yet as his mother, you sit in his face and tell him you don't respect him as a man?
All right. I'm sure this should be ringing off all kind of alarms, right? This should be ringing off all kind of alarms when you see this. So basically in the video, you have a young man who's being raised by his mother. She has an idea of what a man is. She's not telling him what the idea is. He's just following his own ideas, thinking he's doing right. And him and the mother is clashing because at the end of the day, it's not the idea that she has. But he doesn't know the idea that she has, nor does he have a role model for a father. So he's sitting there, he's confused, he's angry and frustrated, and he doesn't know to express. He's not experienced enough to express his frustration and to ask her questions. And she's not giving him the answers he needs to be the person he is. And now you have an emasculated young man. This is what narcissistic, this is the narcissistic mother syndrome right here, right? What do you think about that one? I can't.
the only thing that's going through my mind is that one of the things that we tell, we try to train and we try to be wise enough that whatever we're thinking or whatever our thoughts is, I don't, she, there was, so right at that moment, I felt his shame. I felt his humiliation. I felt his disappointment. And I wouldn't be surprised if he got up from the table and never spoke to his mother again. Just because this is a conversation that not only did she not have with him at any level, at what point were you covering him, right? At what point, you know what? I didn't, and no accountability. Like, you know what? Whoever she is, what I forgot her name is, she should have never been able. She said, you know what? As a mother, I felt like I should have done more. I should have did this. I should have said that. It's kind of like I'm throwing it all on him. The expectation is kind of like raise yourself, be what I expect you to be without me training you, without me teaching, without me guiding you, without modeling anything before you, and you have an expectation of me. And I'm just, I mean, I would think I would have, I don't even know. I mean, even if, you know, and I think as a I'm at a loss. I'm really, I can't even imagine a parent to sit across the table from her child and say something as something like that. I mean, I don't care where the level of disappointment is. I think you would have been able to cover them and say, you know what, we have some work to do. Maybe I should have, I didn't, you know, I gotta, you know, as a parent, I'm not going, you learn for the most part. So this is my model. This is my style. I like to share what the expectation is. I like to model what the expectation is. I like to give examples of what the expectation is. And then I like to make sure we all understand what the expectation is, so that if you don't know what the expectation is, we can talk through it and we can have, that's even with my kids. We talk about a lot of things. I want to make sure you understand. I'm having all kind of in-depth conversations just because I want to make sure I'm giving you scenarios, I'm giving you examples. I want to make sure it's clear, so that if there's no execution, then we have to figure out where there's no execution. And I think as a parent, to a degree, I'm going to kind of cover all of this and I'm going to recognize where I'm at and what's going on. The lack of the role models within the household. He has no role model in his house, and you telling him what type of man you expect him to be when you didn't expect enough of a man to keep one to go to show him anything, right? Like, so for me, I just feel like a lack of accountability. And like I said, I was a little bit heated and touched for a moment as a parent, because I can't imagine a mother or a parent having that kind of conversation, as bold and as brazen as that is, almost humiliating, and just her son in front of everybody, like he's not a man to her. But you raised him. So if he's not a man, according to what you did, then I think some of that, not some of it, I think we're gonna lay some of this blame, or most of the blame, on you, because this is what you set up in his foundation. So I'm just gonna say that, just because I was a little bit fired up by that whole thing.
So go ahead, go ahead.
But then also, she she just has an idea of what a man is. You know what I'm saying? But she doesn't know, you know, what a man is supposed to be. Only a man can train up a man to be a man. You know what I mean? So, she's just totally she's totally left field with her
Right.
thinking.
All right. So yeah,
I was really, go ahead,
um, she basically contradicted herself, because if you have an idea of what a man should be in your head, how could you not train him according to that idea? So that didn't make sense to me. And like you said, in terms of conversation, why is she not telling him the expectations of this so-called idea in her mind? Like, how do you do something and the only one who knows about it is you, when two people are incorporated? That's
Right.
a recipe for failure.
Factory.
that's those relationships where you say that you always hear, like, how are you expecting someone to do something if you have an expectation? They don't read your mind, right? That's, I got to read your mind and figure out what you think I should be doing, as opposed to you
Exactly.
clear foundation and guiding me and telling me, hey, you know what, this is what you're supposed to do. When my son was younger, I said, listen, this and that, and he looked at me like I was crazy. I said, let me tell you something, I'm a woman, and I know exactly what I would need from somebody to be my partner. And I'm telling you what that is, whether you like it, whether you agree with it, this is what the expectation is going to be. I'm not telling you something different. And so that I would not set him up for failure, that he walked out in there and be like, what am I supposed to do? What do I do?
well, at the end of the day,
Exactly. Thank you.
the lady that was interviewing them is Ayala Vesson. She does a lot of those interviews, and believe it or not, this is what goes on in a lot of homes, right? That wasn't just like an isolated incident.
Sorry, that was the craziest thing I ever heard. And then you put your son on TV. Like, how do you do that?
But I mean, okay, so I used to go to the courthouse a lot, and I see the mothers there crying or yelling at the kids, yelling at the frustration, and you see the lack of influence, the male influence, lack of role models, lack of this, and them following the crowd, the mothers screaming, yelling. that goes on every day. If you sit in the courthouse, you'll see a lot of things reminiscent of what you just saw. This is not something that's just happening. This is something that it's widespread. How do we stop it? How do we get these young men in the proper role models and what's going on? I show that to show that the narcissistic intent of the mother and how it's destroying the child. It's emasculation. Later, I'm gonna show another clip of them explaining the whole thing, and bringing it down so we can. I just want to show this as the preview. Yes.
You know what? This just in my mind is just taking me back to when we talk about relationships, right? And when we talk about family building and we talk about, creating this environment, right? And it goes back, what I was thinking about is when we talk about people who are broken, right? We have these broken people, and I'm hearing and I'm seeing in her situation, she's probably just surviving. And I'm saying this because I know real life what that looks like. You create up all these mechanisms, you departmentalize everything, you put it here, you don't deal with that over there. You know how to get up, you know how to function, you know how to do these things, but there's other components that we fail to kind of address in that surviving mode. We never, if we're not put in a place where we're fortunate enough to change that thinking, not from just surviving to thriving, that's what it looks like. And when I talk about that circle and that cycle, that's what we're talking about. We just get to a place. We have kids. Okay, we 18, we 19, we got out of this house and we're here now. All kind of madness, all kind of craziness. And I'm sorry, I know we're not talking about that.
Go ahead.
But every time we talk about relationships, it always brings me back to this brokenness that we are not whole, and we come into these places and we bring these children into these spaces where they're dealing with our dysfunction and our inability to kind of cope and be mature. We don't have the right foundation, but we have the right age to have a child. All we need to be is, I'm 18, well, I'm not, that's not gonna work for me, but 19, 20, 21, whatever that looks like, you have a child, but mentally, emotionally, socially, academically, maybe all those components we missing in a lot of spaces, and we go on and we just barely got out of this situation, and so we're now in this space, and we continue to survive. We never think about, and I don't want to say we because that's so broad, but it's important that you look at what you're doing, where you at, what's going on, what are you doing with the next generation, how are you raising your children, what foundation is you laying before your children, what environment are you creating for these children. And I'm telling you this because I personally firsthand, and I will share with you, just I try not to get off topic, but I'm going to share with you, number one, maybe one or two of my passions. Number one, my passion is the children, right? Because I was a child. Nobody saw my need. Nobody saw how to support me and help me, right? That's just me. I'm being transparent. I always like to be transparent in these spaces. And so I always think about the children, and I'm always doing things to kind of support them, to give them a voice, to be able to, how do you become a leader? How do you deal with this? How do you make choices? How do you problem solve? What could you have done? You can't control anybody else, but what could you have done? I'm empowering them with information because that I felt like I didn't get. That's number one. Number two, I'm talking about mental illness and mental health because a lot of times in our community, we fail to see the benefit of it just because we think get up, go on, move on, deal with it. It's no big deal. We're strong. We're not telling anybody our business. You weak if you can't handle it. What happens? We're passing this same mess on to our children, and we expect them to survive and be productive members of society and hold a wonderful family when everything else has been broken in pieces. And so I will just share that with you just because I always get, that always ignites something in me because it's, when we think about it, I always think about things like this when we're talking about children. They come here and they should have love, they should have support, they should have nurturing, they should have the foundation to help them be well-rounded, loving. I was looking at something and it was talking about the glance that a mother gives, a loving glance, or an accepting glance, what that does to a child, um, what kind of image and what type of picture that is taken, and what is that doing for their well-being, like how that is impacting them, that they feel loved, they feel accepted. When you're looking at a child and you're angry and you're disciplining them from anger, from violence, from hatred, from abuse, from frustration, they're not getting that message that you love them. They're not getting that message that I'm important to my mother, that I had, or my father, that I'm not the problem that they're dealing with, that I'm not a part of the problem. And so I just, said that just because it's so important and we don't think about that. But I'm going to stop rambling on.
No, no, that was cool. That was cool. That was definitely what we was going into. That was definitely what we was going into. Um, like I said, we gonna get back into the the um the way mothers can't love. And one topic I wanted to talk about was the overly enmeshed mother, a mother who smothers love and she demands her child's attention. There are no boundaries, right? And because there's no boundaries, she is in that person's life at all costs, and that person has no identity. They have no decision making. They're controlled. Everything is a reflection of who she is and not what they are, right? And that young man in that scenario look like he's following down that pathway. He's confused about who we are. He has no idea where he's going. He has no understanding of what a man is. And her understanding may not even be what a man is at the end of the day. So this is the things that that's he has to face. And because he has to face that, he's facing the confusing issue of what to do. The young man head is down and he's totally out of it, right? Now, the most important thing, what's the most important thing you could do for a child is to give child autonomy, right? So there's three senses of autonomy that's expected to give to a child. The first one that we strike is an automatic, is what we call the terrible tools. And the terrible tools is not terrible tools. The terrible tools is just the fact of them realizing what their boundaries is and them wanting to do things independently on their own. That's why the
They're
fourth
exploring them, right? They're learning them. They're exploring what the limits are. It's an exploration, and we don't embrace it the right way without the right information, I should say.
without the right information. That's why they force themselves to walk. They want to eat. They want to hold their own forks. They want to do all this is the sense of independence from living a moment where they've been independent on you from that moment. Now is this. So now they need to know the boundaries of what they can do and what they can't do because they're experiencing the world that they don't know. So this is where we become important to teach them these things, right? So this is it. The next step is the teens, the decision making, the failing, the getting back up. Most of our parents don't teach us that failing is not the end of the world. You know what I'm saying? A lot of people fail, they give up, or they find themselves not good at something and they stop doing it, right?
Or
So
they make us think that when we do fail, we're not that's it. That like they don't give us an opportunity that we fail
right,
something, get up, try it again. It's like the end of the world. We're like that's everything is done because you fail. Like you can't fail.
right. So
And then
you fail one class in school, now you need now
that's
now
the end of the world.
you need to sweep the floors. That's it. You're gonna you're gonna be a janitor. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's just things that they say. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, you know, the
And
life.
you know what, Tony? When we put that kind of thinking in our children's heads that they can't fail, then they become afraid to try.
Yeah,
We don't allow them to
you
explore. They
make them
get stuck.
fearful.
Right.
Make them fearful of an environment. And you can't be fearful of an environment because fear will stop you from being who you're supposed to be. On the other side of fear is victory. But if you stop because of an obstacle, you'll never overcome the obstacle and you'll never become the person that you need to be. Most successful people in this world was able to face their fears, fall down, get back up, fall down, get back up, and cross over in what they wanted to be. A lot of times we need to create the dream of who we need to be in order to go where we're supposed to be, right? So this is the next step, it's the decision-making process. The next step is adulthood. total independency. Take the things that you learn from your teen years and what they gave you and utilize those resources with your family. Teach them the responsibilities. Create the same thing that was created for you. Can you do that? That's the ultimate form of total independence and being able to exercise your own potentials within inside of you. It gets hampered when you don't become the source of your own production and somebody else becomes your decision maker, right? So this is where I reflect the beta and alpha male and how it goes, right? So this is exactly how it goes, right? So in the sense of you have the sun and you have the moon is always a reflection of the sun. So the moon is always the beta. The sun is always the alpha because that's the one that's the source. Alphas is always the source. So here goes now, right? Anything I say, the moon always reflects. So that anything I say, the beta always reflects, never reflecting his own thoughts or ideals. And betas always claim the victim. They never take control of their own destiny, right? So it's all about a mindset. And I use those terms loosely because a lot of people take those terms and they run with it. And it's just a labeling so that we can understand where we at in the decision-making process and where we at in our lives and how we can change that so that we can not have a destiny forged for us, but we can forge our own destiny. We can make our own plans. We can do our own thing. It's not about if you fail. It's all about trying and getting up and learning. Self-investment in ourselves. Invest in yourselves. You can do it. It's all about just taking time. Things wasn't built in a day. It's a step-by-step process. A lot of times we become distressed because it doesn't happen right away, but nothing good happens right away, right? It takes time, it takes consistency. And what happens is what we're talking about, being that the love that we're getting is inconsistent and is conditional. We learn that we have to earn the things that a love that is supposed to be given to us. And because it's earned, we become more subconscious, we become more avoidant, we become depressed when we can't reach those goals, and it hampers us from who we need to be, right? Do you want to say something, Tamika?
No, I was just listening. I was just thinking about
Okay,
my
all
own
right.
thoughts about
So
that.
so with that being said, um the next thing with
I
info
have personally seen that in all three scenarios. I've seen all three of those examples. Seen it.
the thing that she didn't say though in infantilism is the lack of growth in the person. So the person becomes stagnant, and that's the thing that I wanted to stress. It's not so much that these things is happening, because if you're growing, at some point you're gonna overcome it. But because we stay at a certain point, so have you ever talked to a person who is 30 but still talks like they're 13? You know what I'm saying? You talk to a person that's 40 and they still doing things that a 14-year-old do. It's because at some point in their life, their growth was stunted. I'm talking about emotionally. I'm talking about psychologically. I'm not talking about physically now. There's a lot of people's growth that could be stunted psychologically. So when you're talking to them, you're talking to the mind of a child. You're not talking to the mind of an adult. So they want to do childish things. So you think you're dealing with an adult just because of the frame that you're talking to, but mentally you're dealing with a child. You're dealing with a child mentality. And I say that loosely, but a child mentality is not just, I'm talking about child, but I'm talking about things that are not responsible.
An
They immature,
immature
right?
individual.
Immature individual. And we have a lot of immature in the, and the thing is that we have a lot of 40-year-olds or who are immature individuals who are holding grand responsibilities that are sorely failing because their mind is not developed to handle that, right? And life is a developmental stage, and we have to evolve in order to handle the oncoming issues and obstacles in our life. And if we are not mentally prepared to do that, and the lady, I like what she said, infantilism, we begin to break at the seams. And what happens is we call it our family begins to collapse, right? And what happens is a lot of them begin to abdicate their responsibilities because a lot of them don't know how to carry it on. Did anybody want to say something?
I was going to say, when I said I saw that as and again, when we started, we talked about the trauma, right? And so there was a period of trauma that caused this person to get stuck in this space of having to deal with a situation, a loss and a trauma that they have yet themselves to deal with. And the way for them to deal with that is to control and that same pattern of behavior that we're talking about. And really, it kind of, you need me to do this. You need me. I'm here. Then I'm helping you and I'm doing this. But it's really to feed their own fear and it's really it's for them to control the situation because they had this fear of losing or loss. And so they're now trying to hold everybody and hold the situation tight, really tight to them without allowing the situation and the person to be free to do what they need to do and trust that you're not going to lose the person, but because of their own unresolved trauma and dealing and not being able to deal with it, they're holding this other person hostage, literally hostage, and everything they do.
Right. So the holding hostage is the controlling behaviors. Definitely on point. Um, Now, in this, we're going to talk about the narcissistic mother, right? So it's a person that's powerfully insecure, self-absorbed. The thing about narcissistic people is they seem like they got it going on, and insecurity is not a possibility. They feel like they are overconfident, they're this, they're that. But when you look behind what they are, they're very much insecure, they're very much full of depression, and they're a broken person. But on the outside, the mask, they look very strong. They look very this, right? A person like that would be like, um, just come to think of it, like, would probably be like a Donald Trump type of person. They're very confident, they're overexertive, they're challenging everything. But in the back end of it, there's a lot of pain. There's a lot of things going on. And these people who overexert confidence, overcompensate, are usually the people that fall victims to these insecurities that they have in their life, right? And I just wanted to touch on that, right? Because these people seek adoration, attention. They are attention seekers, right? And they will always want you to compliment them. Have you ever been in a conversation with somebody and all they want you to do was tell them how great they was and what they did and what it is, and then you talk about what you did and the conversation goes crickets. But when you talk about what they want to talk about, the conversation suddenly becomes exciting. Yes, I did this. I travel. And then if you say, yes, wow, I'm so amazed, they start to tell you more and they get more excited about telling you when you act so amazed. I mean, I do this for fun. I just talk to people. Hey, oh my gosh, I'm so impressed. And they said, really? Yes. And they keep going. And the whole conversation goes for an hour and it's all about them. It's never about, they don't know nothing about you, but you know everything about them. And this is the extent of what you call a narcissistic person, right? And what I wanted to do is I wanted to show narcissistic mothers and their golden sons, right? Their golden children, golden child, which is their sons, right? Many of these narcissistic families are dysfunctional. um they're pathologically enmeshed, meaning that they have no clear boundaries, they have no identities, and they become intertwined with other family members, right? So the golden child is literally extension of the mother growing and develop in her identities and beliefs. He's the surrogate. Remember, I talked about the son of the moon. He is the surrogate of the mother, right? Now, there was an interesting video with that, and I want to share it with you, and let me see what you guys think.
Hear what anyone says, a narc and his mother have a secret obsession with each other.
Yeah, it's because their mum is a narcissist themselves, and they taught them everything they know. And also, especially with men, narcissistic men, they taught them these very, very, very misogynistic attitudes. Narcissistic women are some of the most misogynistic people out there. They absolutely despise women. If you look at a narcissistic family, you can tell which one of the children ended up being a narcissist because they have this weird obsessive relationship with their mother. And the ones who aren't narcissists never want to talk to her.
All right. So at the end of the day, again, this notion of being in with a narcissistic mother and the child having no say so, he follows what the mother says, right? The problem is this: what does that relationship look like, and how does that fare in for the female, right, who is involved with a person who is being controlled by his mother? All right, so I have one more. I have a couple of things that I had to show. So this is where we start to get in and we generate the conversation about actually what's going on. I got one more to show about this. Hold on. Well, a couple more to show, but listen, let me show you this.
Oh, so you're my son's new girlfriend. Pretty soon you're gonna find out that I'm still friends with his ex-girlfriend. Why would you be friends with his ex? We're not actually friends. I don't even really like her. I just really enjoy manipulating her. I don't get it. Why would you do that? Well, it was my way of controlling the direction of the relationship, and having her attention and my son's attention made me feel relevant. Well, things will be different in this relationship. Your son respects me, and I'm not like his ex. Honey, that's adorable. When you try to set limits, I'll just play the martyr. My son can't handle it when I cry. Oh my God. If you want to stay with my son, pretty soon you'll be catering to my narcissistic needs too. Welcome to the family.
All right. So again, this is the rabbit hole of having a narcissistic relationship with, because it has nothing to do with what the child wants, or nothing to do with what the child. So secretly, look at this, secretly they're hating the mother for making all these decisions, but they don't have the courage or the anxiety to confront the mother. So they take this rage out on their partners and intimate partners that they have. Now, we have a cousin who hates his mother, definitely does, right? They don't know who his father is, and they can't overcompensate because they don't know who his father is. Unfortunately, he takes his anger out on the women he dates. He profusely beats every one of them, right? And he goes in and he talks with his mother. The other day, he actually hit one of the girls he was with while she was walking with his daughter, right? Now, if you look at this kid, you wouldn't think that he has this problem, but he secretly hates his mother. And so they develop these, what they call these misogynistic behaviors, right? And unfortunately, it only can be resolved. A lot of times it can be resolved with them becoming self-aware that they have a problem and seeking assistance, right? And what's going on now is that we're losing a lot of our young men because a lot of them feel that they have been emasculated in the relationship, the mother to son relationship, or the mother to father relationship, where we're dealing with the mother to son relationship, and they don't know how to respond, and they have no say so in their lives. And what they're doing is they're taking this aggression out on their intimate partners. Now, is there anything that you saw that you want to talk about before we go into the next segment? No, all right. So good. So when we looking at it now, hold on. When we're looking at it now, we're looking at the son, the mother fulfills her needs and the desires through the son, right? The son is a surrogate best friend for the mother, the emotional regulator, right? The child is only showing emotional affection when he's doing what the mother wants. So he's living and understanding unconditional love. He realizes that he has to earn the love of the mother, or earn the love of the mother in order to gain her love. So he is always in the state of confusion and unknowing if he's doing the right thing, right? So that's like the young man you saw in the video previously. He's trying to gain his mother's attention and his mother's love, and not understanding the things that he has to do in order to gain that love, to gain her affection. So he's confused, he's frustrated, and 9 times out of 10, he's not having a great relationship with the person that he's involved with. The problem is that when you get into these type of roles with these people who are in these type of situations, if you're looking at to them to be like the leader of the household and to take over and stuff like that, they themselves is incapable of doing that, because they themselves don't know who themselves is, and they're struggling to come out of certain situations. And because they're struggling to come out of their own situations, and they're not they don't have a framework, and the framework that they have, they're being told by somebody whom they secretly despise. They, at the end of the day, how can they lead, and how could they lead a household? So when you talk about being in a relationship with these kind of people, you can't be in a relationship. 9 times out of 10, we see more today. We see more women taking over the relationships and taking over just because of the confusion and the upsetness of the emasculation that they're experiencing in the mother-son relationship. Does that make sense to everybody? Right? Okay. Is there any
I
question?
think we talked about this. I think we talked about this in one segment. I was telling you how when I was working in the school, I had this parent who her son was in fourth or fifth grade at the time, and she was not with the father. And in her attempt to protect, as a parent, you want to protect your child. She's overcompensating. I can see all of that because the dad is not doing what he's supposed to do. But I can see that in her attempt to address some of the neglect and maybe some of the lack of participation from the father. Again, she was overcompensating, and some of the things that she was allowing and doing with the young man, I was like, I couldn't even imagine, like, just in regular things that boys do, or, just to be able to develop and to find out who he is. All of that was kind of cut down. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I would hate to see what type of man he becomes because of, and who am I to tell her what she's doing is wrong and she's not. And I'm just thinking to myself, oh my God, I would never want to see what type of what this man turns out to be, because she's not allowing him to develop, to explore, to kind of find out who they, to have that kind of input in his life, as opposed to, instead, she's kind of controlling the dynamics. She wants what she wants to be inputted and nothing else, without any kind of outside interference or any input. And I'm thinking to myself, like, oh my God, like that's definitely not the right way to do it. But I guess again, when we started out this, we talked about unresolved trauma. And a lot of times we don't realize how that trauma, and I always say that if we don't address it, it kind of spills out in so many different ways. It manifests in so many different ways in so many different areas, because we are not willing to look at it. And so I just wanted to say that, because as we we're talking about that, it just came to my mind that I can only imagine what type of young man he is now, without his mother allowing him to make decisions and to develop and to mature into a young, man with the right foundation. So that just was really interesting.
So we touched on that, right? So when they don't have the mother there, it becomes more detrimental, because they end up going into, they have a thing called compulsive repetition, where we go in familiar environments. We have familiar relationships that that resonate the negative relationships that we have with our guardian. So that means he's going to enter into another unhealthy relationship that that is relevant or personifies what he just left with his mother because it's still unresolved, right? And so he's not it's going to be worse because now you have somebody who has nothing invested in you, who's going to make you do things that they don't even care if you get in trouble or do. And so now at the end of the day, is they're entering into the rabbit hole of relationships, and that's what I wanted to say. So it's not what's going to happen, it's the inevitable processes. They're going down the rabbit hole, and if you don't have some intervention, if you don't have anything to hold you back, you are going to find yourself in serious situations and not knowing what to do. All right. And a lot of these people who find themselves in these situations, they experience anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, self-doubt, self-blame, indecision. They end up being codependents, people pleasing. They have difficulties with emotional intimacy, and they enter into codependent relationships. So that's directly into what I was going to talk to next, right? Um, you have anything to say, Tamika, before I go on? No, okay. So, what I'm going to do is I want to show an example of this, right? It's kind of out of sequence, but since it falls into what we're talking about, I wanted to show y'all like these examples. By the way, I figured the examples was good so that it helps to explain where we going with it. All right, so this one, I saw it and I couldn't let it go. All right, hold on. It won't let me show that one. I gotta fix the format. I'll fix it. Hold on though.
I do want to share something that I just was coming across my mind and it just kind of stayed in my mind as we were talking about this whole thing about a parent loving a child. And it just kept coming to my mind that unless you love yourself, you're not going to be able to love anybody else. And I've seen that and experienced that where someone, you could say, we can talk about a whole lot of things, but your actions, your choices, your behavior shows how much you love yourself. And then where you disapprove of things and how you disapprove of things, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, that level, that place where you got stuck or where you had the trauma, how you now repeat that same situation onto the next generation. I've seen that, and I'm like, that's that unresolved trauma that did not get resolved, that you didn't deal with, and when you got to that place of your own children, it just triggered and it just manifested itself. So I've seen that. And so many people think, you know what, and one of the things that I was reading, it was talking about, in most parents.
All right. Clearly. So let me give you a little background on that. I like that little piece. So he is an African prince, and he's getting ready to take over, and he has an American girlfriend. And because she's not familiar with their customs and traditions, they don't want her to be queen. And so the lady that you seen walked in there, she is familiar with the people, the traditions, and the mother feel that this is a better selection for him. The one he selected is wrong. He shouldn't be in love with her. He should be in love with the one the mother selected. So he's not in love with that one. He's more infatuated with the one that he's with right now. So she's determined to destroy that relationship so that he marries the one she wants, right? And this is what is an example of that type of relationship. And what happens, it's a controlling relationship, it's a controlling mechanism. And what happens is when you disagree with them, now you become the enemy. They begin to abandon you and they want to attack you, right? The only way you can get them back on your side or her back on your side is to agree with her advice and her arrangements. The moment you disagree, they feel abandoned, they feel upset, and now they begin to attack you. This is the relationship of a narcissistic mother and a son. And this is just what I wanted to show and illustrate. How do we avoid these things? How do this happens, right? So he's in a dilemma because he doesn't want to destroy the relationship with his mother, but yet still he wants to do and marry who he does. He make himself he make himself does he make himself um uncomfortable because he
But
wants
Tony, didn't he already destroy the relationship by standing up to her? That's already destroying her.
well, yeah, it's already destroying her, and at the moment is the only way he can fix it is to either kick the girl out. There's another clip, well, time where she actually forces the girl to interfere in the relationship and makes it seem like she has a relationship with him, and the girl he wants leaves him because she gets the wrong idea of how the scenario played out. And all I'm saying is, so when you don't agree, they seek to interfere and destroy the relationships that you have. And at the end of the day, a lot of times we become complacent because we already know, like, um, I met a girl, her father, she was in Long Island, and her father had a serious drinking problem. So he got on the phone and cursed me out one day. And I didn't even know why he was cursing. She said, "That's no problem. My father does that. He's drunk." And I'm like, "So your father is drunk?" And I'm saying, and these is things that is not far-fetched that happens. You know what I'm saying? The man cursed me out something terrible. You know what I'm saying? And at the end of the day, I think that was the last day we spoke. Actually, that was the last day we spoke. But I'm just saying, at the end of the day, they destroy relationships that you have with the people that you want the most. You know what I'm saying? And they're relentless, they're insistent, and they're determined to get their way. And these is what we
Your
call
decision, your decision is an act of betrayal, right? It's like now
yes,
you're
yes,
betraying them, and so now you've angered them. Now they're retaliating. They're using revenge.
yes, 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 yes. And this is exactly what we're dealing with now when we're talking about these type of intermingle relationships where it becomes distorted. Boundaries, this is why boundaries is very important, because at the end of the day, when boundaries are erased, that means everything that you have in your life is up for grabs, and is up for decisions, and it's up for scrutinization, and it's up for talk. And what happens is that puts a strain on the relationship that you have with the significant other. In the book it talked about, and this is a prime example of the book. It talked about, so the girl, she's married with a husband, they live in their own house, and they invite the mother over to tell her that they're having another baby. The mother faints. She says, "Oh my God, you're having another baby. That means I'm gonna have to help you take care of it." That's the first thing she said. She faints in the middle of the dinner with everybody there looking. So she's so embarrassed. She don't even know what to tell everybody. So she calls the mother over the next day. She's like, "You're not even paying for the baby, and you're not even taking me to the hospital." She goes, "Oh my God," and she starts rubbing her head. "You're killing me. You're making me faint. You always do these things." So she made it seem like her having a new baby was a burden on her, when she actually had nothing to do with the taking care of the baby, because the husband and her was going to take care of it. At the end of the day, for some reason, she didn't want her to have another baby. She was just happy with her having that one. And so these are things that happens in these relationships. And so because she didn't know how to address the mother, it put a strain on her relationship with her partner. Again, when boundaries are erased, this is why boundaries is very important. When boundaries is erased, the relationship that you have with the other person, it becomes strained. You know what I mean? And these is things that we need to fix. Is there any questions about that? No, we good. All right. So what I want to do is what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at what constitutes a narcissistic relationship and how it going. This didn't go exactly like how I had it going on, but I mean it was even better. It turned out even better. We got to examples and stuff like that. And then I'm gonna let you hear a video of a lady explaining of what a capable and good relationship is. And if there are no questions, we're gonna close out for the day. Um, that you're involved in a narcissistic relationship with your mother when it's engulfing, it's consuming, controlling. They're ignoring your decisions, what your thoughts or your ideas is. There's a combination of both from of mood swings, from excited to upset. You're confused. You don't know what's making her happy. You're in that limbo, and you're trying to earn her love, and it's conditional based on what she thinks or feels you're supposed to do. The boundaries is extremely poor. Your respect is not taking into consideration. They don't respect your
It's not reciprocated. They want you to respect them, but they don't want to respect your ability to make a decision and be able to stand and live on your own. That's what that is.
right. So the feeling of superiority, you're the child. No matter if you're 41, 42, you're still the child. I tell you what to do, whatever, whatever, whatever. And so it's highly controlling, highly critical. It's very manipulative. It's full of guilt, and it's an inflated sense of self. This is what you have, right? And this is what you're dealing with. And these are just some of the characteristics to know that you're in a controlling environment and your
And the
decision.
importance in your life and in your dynamics. They are no longer a part of that space, but they're still trying to push themselves in there and monopolize that kind of space in your environment, which is where they should not be at this point. So
Right. Exactly.
and understanding that you're not betraying them, that this is and instead of creating an all-inclusive, they're bringing division. They're creating this dynamic where we're trying to separate the family as opposed to trying to bring the family together, that which is so unfortunate.
Yes. So this is where the family suffers. So my thing is right, and the reason why I brought this up, my thing is right. How can you expect a person to be a leader if you're not letting them lead? How can how can you expect, like, if every time you have to consult with somebody in order to make a decision, how can I respect your decision? My father passed away. I just wanted to share that my father passed away, and um he had a cousin come and see me, right? So the cousin goes, I don't really know. I just the first time I spoke to the cousin, I really don't even like the cousin, but I just spoke to him because it was at that moment you had to speak to him. You understand what I'm saying? I'm just keeping it real. So at the end of the day, I'm sitting in the car with him. I just came out the service. We talking. All these years, he never came and see me. Now he wants to talk to me. I don't, I really wasn't. But anyway, I sat down and listened to the conversation. I'm just preparing, right? So he says, I just want you to know I was in the military too. And, me and my wife, we have a great relationship. Hopefully you get married in your life. Now he's giving me the big brother talk. And he says, one day a friend came to my house and my wife didn't like him. And because she didn't like him, I had to get rid of him. So I looked again. I stopped. I started listening. I said, so I asked him, I said, so you Did the friend do anything to you? He said, no. Did she do anything to the wife? No. I said, but you got rid of him because she said so? He said, yeah. So then I stopped talking to him. I said, why don't you give me her number? Because I know that if I talk to her, whether you like me or not, you'll talk. You understand what I'm saying? This is how, and that was me at a young age. You understand what I'm saying? I don't want to talk to you because you're not the boss. I want to talk to the boss. This is where I've always been. Because at the end of the day, I realized that as long as she likes me, you're going to like me. And as long as she tells you to do it, you're going to do it. So why would I talk to you to tell her to do it when I could talk to the boss and she tell you to do it? You know what I mean?
That was one of the things that I was saying at the beginning. We take away we don't allow them to develop. When we talk about problem solving and making decisions, that is in that control component, we take that away. We don't allow them to think, like she said, to think critically and allow them to make a decision. Whether it's a bad one, we can talk about. The conversation is, okay, you made that decision. You made a decision. Now let's talk about what went wrong with the decision. That is missing out of that equation with being able to make the decision. And that's when we talk about control, not allowing an individual to develop and make their own decision, or at least use their brain to think critically to come up with a solution to the problem.
All right. So yeah, this is so let's break this down. In order for a person to be a leader, they have to be independent. Agreed? One, and they have to be able to critically think for their own self, right? Not only that, they have to have their own ideals, their own purpose, and they have to have a framework about going about it. If they don't have these three essential things, how can you expect me to listen to you? It's not going to happen. And so we enter into a lot of relationships with people that don't have the framework, but yet still you screaming at them, do this, do that. And they just like the kid in the video when the mother, you have the idea of what's supposed to go on, but he doesn't have the idea of what he's supposed to do. So you're just screaming and he's not understanding what he's supposed to do. So it comes out all wrong and confused, and this is where the argument ensues. So then we overcompensate by showing aggression, because at the end of the day, the aggression part in the relationship is the strong point of the male, and it doesn't resolve the problem. It only infuriates the problem. And what happens is we begin to lose sight of where we're supposed to go and what it's supposed to be. So if we could somehow meet in the middle and understand the roles, it would be better, and we'll be able to develop successful relationships.
You said something really important. You said understand the role, understand the expectation. A lot of times we don't know what the expectation is. That's left, like you said, out of the equation, and we left to kind of figure it out, trying to find a way out.
Yeah,
And you're trying to figure it, like you said, you're trying to figure it out because there's no clear expectation as to what you're supposed to do. But we started this conversation when we started talking about love, being able to love someone else. And I know for sure, unless you love yourself and you have a clear understanding of what love is, there's no way you're going to be able to kind of show that to someone else. What you will get is manipulation. What you will get is control. What you will get is someone trying to take ownership, trying to take possession. We see all those toxic and unhealthy dynamics come into play just because we don't understand what love is, and we're trying to, instead of dealing with whatever's going on, what we're lacking, and trying to figure out what's going on and get that help to kind of navigate to a successful space. We do all of those things. Control, it just ranges. You can expect any of that just because we have not kind of figured out what it is. We don't have a clear identity. We don't have a clear identity for self. We don't know who we are. We can't accept ourselves, because if the people who birthed us and brought us here did not give us a clear acceptance of ourselves, if they can't accept us and they're the ones who gave birth to us, why should we accept ourselves, right? And so that becomes the kind of thinking and the mentality. But we have to love ourselves. And I think we can get, whether we get that love from our parents or whether it's in our foundation, which is the good thing, we can still get it at no matter what age. You can come to a space where whatever they did not give you, whatever was lacking in that foundation in the beginning stages, you can overcome that. There's resiliency, you can overcome that. And so I just wanted to say that because I did not have that.
Well,
But such is life that we have I say that lightly, I'm joking. I wanted to add something light to it, but I say that we can overcome. Like that doesn't mean that because we didn't get it, and that's where we want people to be, just because it wasn't in the foundation. And that's what we're doing right now. We're raising awareness. We're sounding the alarm that just because this did not happen in your foundation and the foundation years and developmental years does not mean at some point you cannot get the help that you need to overcome and to be a successful person where you're at right now. And so I just wanted to say that.
all right, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I got one more thing. I got one more thing to show. Now that we understand what a leader is and what successful is and how people can influence our decisions and lead us down a rabbit hole of destruction, right? What happens when it's an institution that's doing it to the relationship? What do we do, right? Now, I wish Sean and them was here because they would have been a great one, but we're gonna go on with it. We're gonna talk about Devin Franklin and Megan Good and how the church persecuted her and destroyed their relationship. I want you to see that and then see what an outside force, how it can destroy a good relationship. All right.
So it sounds like we're going to get a teaser of what happened so that we can carry this over into our next conversation, which would be a nice segue. It sounds like I think that's what I'm hearing.
No, yeah, but I gotta show it, right? I gotta show it, like you know what I mean. It's a teaser. I gotta show it. So I mean, I hope you'll find it interesting, and then from there we gonna thing. Hold on a minute. It's not formatted. You know what? We're gonna show this next one because I gotta format it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Hold on a minute. Let me see if I could get it. Uh yeah, I got it. It should be there, 10 seconds. I think this is this lines up with exactly where we at with it. Hold on, let me go back. There it goes, right there. All right, so this is the clip. Look at it and let me know.
His home, but he was a preacher and was deeply religious. And as such, there was an expectation.
You're not sharing your screen?
That he was going to end up with a perfect Christian woman.
You don't hear it?
But instead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on.
I hear it. I don't see it.
All right, hold on. All right, you see it now?
The moment I got married, I no longer was receiving criticism from just people in the world. I was receiving criticism from people who were Christian. It was almost kind of like brutal attacks I was getting on my character, on my husband, on different things. And so I wasn't ready for that. She was constantly bullied for everything, even for things that she did outside the church. Like the time when a woman tried to belittle her for what she wore to the grocery store.
And the Lord let me come to push past the judgment. Hold on. Okay, because this is real. Because you have to make sure what you say and what you do match up. You understand? Okay, so we're going to cover up, right?
Wait a minute. No.
All right, so that's the segue out. As you could see, right? You see that the church had a narcissistic view, and because of their view, they destroyed a relationship with a woman that was actually trying to be or what there wasn't. She had to stop going to church because of the ridicule. I just wanted to end on that, like, you know, these are the things that end up good relationships because of decisions that other people are making for you and not you making for yourself. All right. So on that note, we can end it. We're gonna talk about that next one. That's just something to think about because that's hot in the tuck.
Yeah, I'm gonna need more time to think about that. I'm gonna need more information before I don't have.
I mean yeah,
that's really an interesting topic. So I'd love to discuss that. And so I look for next month's topic, and I look for a conversation next month.
All right. So thank everybody for coming. This is our way out. Have a blessed one, everyone, and thank you.